Hey guys, so today I wanted to do another bit of an advice video, and to start this video I want to tell you a little story. About 2 years ago I did a commissioned project which I would probably consider one of the most difficult and frustrating projects I have ever done, and I'll explain to you why. For starters, pretty much the instant the contract got signed, the client I was working with started asking if I could do a bunch of extra stuff that wasn't in the parameters of the contract, stuff that they hadn't even brought up as a possibility as part of the commission. Everything we talked about was in regards to me making a character design, but then suddenly after, like I say, after the contract got signed, it took pretty much no time for them to start asking, oh, can you do these other little illustration elements that are going to be a part of the background? I called them out on it and I was like, hey, no, this is the first I'm hearing of this, it's not in the contract, you just signed the contract, you should understand that that's not okay. And they sort of argued their point, and I think they didn't fully understand what I was upset about, because the response they gave me didn't actually really give any reason why I should do a background thing for them. They were just like, oh no, this is what we've talked about, this, see, like, but you know, basically they pointed out stuff that didn't really defend them asking for extra stuff. The big problem with this is, like an idiot, I decided to do that extra stuff anyway at no extra charge. Now I know a lot of you are going to be like, well, that's your mistake, you're an idiot and you did the extra things for free, and that's stupid because everyone tells you you shouldn't do that and you should always charge extra if it's not in the contract and all of this stuff. But I think if anyone else has ever found themselves in this position, you'll probably understand where I'm coming from and why I ended up doing that. I think part of the trouble as a freelancer is obviously, or being self-employed anyway, is you're relying entirely on yourself for everything. And especially when you're starting out, it can be really hard to convince yourself that no, I should be really forward and make this point and charge extra, because there's a lot of fear that if you do that you might lose the job entirely, and you know, if you're relying on that job for next month's rent, it can be easy to fluff the details a little bit. There are other reasons as well. The client was based over in India and had already made a point that what I was charging them was quite a lot of money over there. They sent me an invoice that a previous illustrator had sent them for a previous project of a similar kind, and they'd pretty much done twice the work, or like, you know, they'd created 2 characters for about the same price I was charging. And so I felt really bad sort of being like, oh well, no, you need to charge extra, because it was enough of a struggle getting them to agree to what they had agreed to. Like, I've got no idea what money value is like in India. For all I know, like, I explained to her that what I was charging was like, originally, what I originally charged didn't even cover my rent for a month, or at least not my rent and bills anyway. Whereas I don't know, maybe what I charged over there is like the equivalent of 3 months rent, I don't know. And a second reason for doing this is that at some point in the past, sort of one of the first things I ever did after graduating, is I did a project, a commission for someone, where I let them do all of the final editing, because they were happy to do it. They just asked me to do these illustrations, but then when I saw the final product, it was terrible. So I sort of convinced myself I'd rather just do it all myself rather than let the final product be something I was a bit about. And then just from that point on, the whole project was just riddled with communication problems. There was one point where I'd sent some work off for feedback, didn't hear anything for a week, and so, you know, I emailed her saying, oh, can I get that feedback? It's been a week, I really want to get on with this project. And she said that she didn't receive the email, whether it went in her spam filter or what, and she just said, oh, I just assumed that maybe you were busy or something, and that's why I didn't get it from you as soon as I thought I would. It's one of those things, I realise in retrospect that maybe I should have emailed her sooner, sort of if I didn't get feedback within, say, a maximum of 2 days, I should really have got in touch and seen what was going on. But at the same time I was kind of like, well, it's your money. Yeah, then there was 1 week where I didn't hear from her for like the whole week, didn't get any response to any of my emails. When I finally got a response from her, it turned out she'd disappeared off for a week on some work thing and didn't bother to tell me. Then, yet another problem arose when the character design that I did, she basically gave me the all good. She was like, yep, I like it, that's good, let's leave it at that. And I was like, great, so that's done, it's just all the other little bits left now. And then a few weeks later, she was like, oh yeah, so if you could just finish up that character design, that'd be great. And I was like, but it is finished, you said it was done, you said you were happy with it. She was like, oh no, I thought you were going to do all these final edits and stuff, which I'm like, what final edits? It's a finished product. During the process, she kept emailing me examples of work, and some of those examples were my own work, and she was like, yeah, just do it like this, that's what I want, do it like that. And I was like, that's what I've done, what am I missing? And then eventually I got it out of her that she was specifically referring to the sort of stuff I used to do where I did lots of texture heavy stuff, like for animal characters I'd use a fur texture and that kind of thing, and I'd sort of stopped doing that as much when this project came in. She didn't fully communicate with me what it was she wanted because there was no definite, oh, I like these things, I assumed. And so again, this is like in retrospect, I probably should have been like, what specifically about these images is it that you like? It's fair enough sending me a bunch of images, but that still leaves quite a big, vague, grey area of what I think it is that you want. Yeah, so because of all of those things, in the end, a project that really should have only taken 2 weeks ended up taking 3 months. This is a project I went through that taught me a few things. One, at the start of a project, be sure to get as much information from the client as possible. The trouble is, until you've been through a few projects, it can be hard to know what it is you need to ask to get the right sort of information. But what you need to do is get as much information as you can about what's the use, what is it that you're expecting out of the project overall, and that kind of thing, and then put it into a contract, send them that contract, get them to sign it, and then if after that point they try to ask for anything outside of those parameters, say either no, or if they want it you have to charge more. Number 2, keep in touch with them, make sure you keep bugging them basically. I've been on the end several times where I'm frustrated because I feel like I have to chase clients up when I'm like, well, it's your money, it's your project, why am I the one having to chase you up? And it can be frustrating. But I guess you've got to kind of remember that these are busy people, they're usually juggling a bunch of stuff in one go, and I guess as much as you'd like them to be considerate to you and the fact that you want to do this job and get it done in time, stuff happens, emails go into the spam folder, people just miss emails because they're buried in a pile of other emails. So the best way to deal with that and to make sure that you're getting heard and that your messages are being received is to make sure that like every 24 hours that you don't hear from a client that you're working with, email them and just be like, hey, just want to make sure everything's fine and that you've got my email. Number 3, ask for 50% up front. I only started doing this recently because it can feel a bit awkward and funny asking for 50% up front because, you know, you sort of feel bad, you're like, well, I've not actually done the work yet, and maybe they'll think that you'll run off with the money and that sort of thing. But the reason you want 50% up front is for a couple of reasons. One, because it's security for you basically. If a client suddenly decides they don't want to pay you, they tend to have a lot more power to make sure you never get that money than you do to get the money from them. If you get 50% up front, that shows the client trusts you and, you know, actually wants this project doing. Also, it gives you a bit of security. It means that, say, if you really need the paycheck but you've got to wait until the project's done, you can have the money sooner because, you know, if you can't pay rent and you get kicked out of your house, how can you do the work? There can be some situations where places won't give you 50% up front. I've dealt with a couple of cases like this because there's a mixture of reasons. Sometimes it's just the company's terms and conditions is that you'll only get paid 30 days after the deadline has been met. Which, you know, it's fair enough. It's not that those companies are untrustworthy or anything. Usually it's things like, when I've had these experiences before, it's been that a company has hired a design company and that design company has then hired me. And usually what can happen is that the bigger company at the end won't pay any money to the middle company who then haven't got the money to pay me. And granted, part of me does feel like, for a big company, that's kind of BS, because they should have money, they should be able to hire people. If that big company suddenly cancels the project and says, oh no, we don't want to do it anymore, you still have to get paid. You still have a right to get paid for the work you've done, regardless of whether that design company got paid. But then really, you know, they should be arguing that they should get paid for the work they've done. And it's not really your problem if they aren't willing to argue their own case to the big company. In general, if an individual or a company is really adamant that they won't pay you 50% up front, then there's a chance they might not be the sort of company you want to work with, unless you have some reason to believe that they are a good company, whether they're a previous client, whether it's a friend, that kind of thing. It's circumstantial. Number 4, set a timeline in your project contract / brief. What you really need to do is, in writing, whether it's through email, through a contract or something, tell the client how long you expect it to take. Allow yourself enough time that you're not suddenly giving yourself a really short deadline, but also you're doing this so that the project can't go on indefinitely. Another way to help do that is in your contract to say that you'll do a certain number of revisions. Something around about 3 revisions probably works. In theory, you shouldn't need any more than 3, because assuming the client is giving you good feedback and describing what they want properly, and assuming you're good at your job, it should only take a couple of attempts to get what they want. For example, with the project I've been talking about earlier in the video, that just went on because I didn't set parameters, I didn't limit how many revisions they can ask for, and so in the end it just sort of went on, and you know, I didn't keep track of how many times I had to redo things. And then when I said, oh no, we need to wrap this up, it's been going on long enough, luckily they were like, oh okay, yeah, sure. But if they'd have said no, they, you know, have no obligation, because it wasn't in my contract that I'd only do a few revisions. Other than those 4 points, my general point is communication is key in freelancing. Hopefully sharing my experiences and stories from my time freelancing will help you guys to avoid going through similar situations. There are a lot of people online, whether writing blogs, doing vlogs, that kind of thing, who will try and give you this advice. Tutors at university will give you this kind of advice to try and help people not make the same mistakes they have. But one thing I find is I feel like the best way to learn from mistakes is to make those mistakes yourself, I guess. Obviously you want to avoid really bad situations like a client just flat out not paying you and you not having a contract to protect yourself. Basically, don't be an idiot. Be trusting and make yourself appear trustworthy, but also don't be completely naive, because a lot of people will take advantage of you if they think they can. If you see any red flags from a client, politely decline and, you know, walk away thinking that you probably got away from what could have been a horrible experience. And finally guys, I want to direct you to a new video that Fran had posted this week about having your own terms and conditions document that you can send to clients when a new project comes up. It's a really useful video. I think in some ways it kind of will help build upon what I've said in this video, because watching that is what inspired me to make this video. It's super useful advice and I'm going to be taking it on board myself, because I don't necessarily have my own personalised terms and conditions document, and I think having one will, one, give a more professional appearance, but also is just sort of a way of protecting yourself and making sure a client kind of knows who you are and how you work before a project starts. Fran has also got lots of other great advice videos, so I'd recommend you'd go check all of her videos out, because she's awesome. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!